Hey everyone, welcome to Will's Week in Whiskey, the weekly YouTube show brought to you by the PodCask, where I go through some of the headlines and happenings over the past week or so in the world of whiskey. So if you're unfamiliar with our podcast, check us out at thepodcask.com or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a lot of fun and I think you'll enjoy it. But let's get to what's going on. There's some breaking news out of the Jack Daniel's Distillery. So we knew that in September, Jeff Arnett, the Master Distiller of over 12 years at Jack Daniel's, very award-winning distiller, Master Distiller, and did quite a lot for the brand over that tenure, stepped down kind of unexpectedly. He's been putting some hints on Instagram about him doing things in the future. So we know he's got some plans and we are excited to see what those are, but it left them without a Master Distiller. They have named Chris Fletcher as the new Master Distiller at Jack Daniel's. Now, he's 39 years old. He's a Lynchburg, Tennessee native, and he's actually the grandson of the legendary Master Distiller Frank Bobo, who was very impactful in especially the Tennessee whiskey category, but Jack Daniel's distiller that really is well known in the world of whiskey with that name. Now, not only is that his grandfather, but he also served for Jeff Arnett as the assistant Master Distiller for 6 years. So it's an internal promotion from assistant master distiller to master distiller. I think it will be a very smooth transition for the distillery, and I'm excited to see what Chris does at the distillery, and hopefully we'll get to talk with him and get to know him soon. Next is interesting. Marianne Eaves was a very talked about name in the world of whiskey. She was the first master distiller that was a female in the bourbon category. So very well celebrated. She was at Woodford Reserve and then help kickstart the Castle and Key Distillery and get that really going. But she left there a few years back. She's done a few things like the Sweetens Cove project, and that was hit shelves, was very much talked about. It had people like Peyton Manning and a few other names attached to that brand, but not really a ton of just her work. We didn't know exactly what she was going to be doing. Well, she's launched something really interesting, and it's called Eaves Blind, and you can find out about that at eavesblind.com. It's a quarterly curated blind tasting kit. So essentially you sign up for one of two levels. There's the apprentice level and there's the aficionado level, and those are $300 and $550 respectively, and you'll get a tasting kit quarterly. So the first one, according to some sources, people that have already signed up, is scheduled to hit end of the first quarter of 2021, so around March. And at the apprentice level, you get I believe it's a 100 milliliter bottle, and the kit is gorgeous what they've released. It's some black Glencairns with the etched logo on it, and then you get these opaque sample bottles, like 100 milliliters of something she has blended. And I believe there's like a video tasting that goes along with it and some special online content that goes along with it as well. And it's a high price tag, but that is for a new kit each quarter. So you get that. It's a full year of content coming. And then the aficionado, I think it comes with not only each kit comes with 2 blended 100 milliliters, but it also comes with some 50 milliliter single barrels that she had selected for the kit. It'll be interesting to see what people think about that. I'm thinking about signing up myself so we can review it and give some details on that. It does seem like a high price tag, but it is a unique experience that not a ton of other people are offering. If you were to break it down over the course of the year, per quarter, it's not that much to have something pretty exclusive, unique. It also comes with the glasses and the opaque bottles and things that are, it looks like top-notch packaging, and I'm really excited to see how that goes and to see how that does for her. So we wish her well in that endeavor, and we'll see what it's like, and hopefully I'll bring you a review on the PodCask soon. Finally, we got the press release from the Van Winkle Distillery, which is under the Buffalo Trace umbrella and Sazerac brands. But they release once a year their press release that gives a little bit of information and insight on the Van Winkle lineup, that coveted brand and family of bourbons and one rye that everyone's on the hunt for this time of year. Now, Their press release isn't always as exciting as the BTAC press release, where we find out the proofs of some of the barrel proof whiskeys and the age, if there's a little bit more age, and the evaporation. But what we did find out is that there is much more Family Reserve rye available this year than in previous years. So that's a good news item for fans of the Family Reserve rye. But there's also a little bit of bad news. If you're on the hunt trying to find those coveted 20-year and 23-year bourbons, there is far fewer yield of that this year. So some more rye and far fewer bourbon. We'll see how that shakes out, but it means that it's something that's already hard to get is going to be even harder. It will be interesting to see how the lockdown has affected these allocations, because we know a lot of bottles went to on-premise accounts. So bars and restaurants that spend a lot of money with their distributors, they end up getting more allocation than just a retail shop, say. But because of the shutdown for so long in many parts of the country, is that going to mean that retail stores end up getting more than their normal allocation? It's still to be seen. We'll find out soon. I hope so, but still, these bottles aren't just going to be sitting on the shelves. So we know that their MSRP is very reasonable for what it is, but that doesn't mean that you're going to find the 23-year for $299.99. But if you do, that's a bargain. I'd say grab it immediately. They do put interesting notes in this press release this year. And I believe they had it in there last year as well, but they say that you need to be wary of online sales from Facebook and Craigslist. They mentioned that that's not a legal alcohol sales method. And they also bring up that if you're finding a retail shop that has highly inflated over MSRP, you should maybe consider seeing if your state attorney's general office has information on that. It may be against state law to mark up over a certain MSRP, or maybe talk to the Better Business Bureau and say, this retail store isn't pricing according to the suggested retail price. All that to say, it's highly coveted, and I like to see more rye in the marketplace, but probably won't be getting myself a 20 or 23 bourbon this year. So that's going to do it for this week on Will's Week in Whiskey. If you would go ahead and subscribe to this channel, you'll get alerts if you ring the bell whenever I put out a new video, or if Grease does some videos, or any sort of content coming from the PodCask. Check out our podcast. It's thepodcask.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And also check out our Patreon if you want to support this show and help make things like this continue at patreon.com/thepodcask. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.